Hello, and welcome to Bridgeford Trust Company's Delivering Direction and Control podcast series. Our podcast series is designed to educate, challenge, and inspire listeners while keeping you updated on developments regarding modern trust law and powerful planning opportunities available, all in an effort to deliver direction and control to clients and their advisors.
Well, hello, everybody. This is David Warren, Chairman of the Board of Bridgeford Trust Company, one of our co-founders, here with another installment of our podcast series, which we've become wildly proud of. Over the years, we've had the unbelievable privilege of bringing some tremendous thought leaders to the table, or to the microphone, I should say, to talk about big ideas. I'm always saying how excited Bridgeford gets about big ideas. That's was the reason why we launched Bridgeford, because of big ideas, and having the opportunity to talk to people like Justyn Volesko, who's with us today, is such a pleasure. And I think part of the most important and fun part of my job is the ability to talk to people like Justyn. And Justyn is one of these people you'll hear about directly from him that are pretty special in my world, and it's because we have a very similar trajectory. Justyn and I met right around the same time when we launched our businesses, so we were young entrepreneurial business owners who saw really a better way to go about wealth management and planning, and Justyn and I, and just like so many of the other people we've been lucky to interview, love big ideas. And Justyn not only took a chance on a young Bridgeford, but we also fell in love with the kind of planning that we can do using trusts in modern trust law jurisdictions like South Dakota and Nevada, and not just that, but taking the tax-free nature of those jurisdictions and turning them into magic and doing some unbelievable planning for clients. So having Justyn on this podcast is been long in coming. He's a very important person in our world, not just because he's been supportive of Bridgeford, but because he's one of the smartest minds in the industry, one of the most creative. I put him in the same category as a Bill Lipkin, who actually introduced us. Bill has also been on this podcast and also amazes me with his creativity and finding ways to get to yes, which I think is not always what we see in our industry. There's a lot of industry can be very rigid, and that's the opposite of Justyn. So I'll talk a little bit about Justyn's background, and then we want to get into some great conversation. But Justyn is an attorney like me by training, but unlike me, was smart enough to go get his LLM in taxation, and that was from NYU. Am I right?
It was, yeah.
And of course has a law degree, and very quickly jumped into the wealth planning space. And the company that I want him to describe that he started literally from scratch, him and his partner. It was kind of an offshoot of his phenomenal work at Goldman Sachs. And so he'll talk a little bit about that. And then ultimately now he's transitioned over to a powerhouse of an organization called Cerity, which he will explain and talk about. And it's a group that we also do a lot of work with, who has become very impressive so quickly in the marketplace. It's kind of amazing, their growth trajectory. Yeah. But Justyn, it honestly is a real pleasure to do this with you. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for our friendship and collaboration all these years.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank you as well. Bridgeford has been a fantastic partner of ours. I've enjoyed our friendship and collaboration over the years. I know it is interesting. Our businesses started around the same time, and took a chance on each other, and have been great partners with each other. And like you said, just the difference of having a vision, having big ideas, is something that I think we both shared, coming out of other organizations and just seeing how things are done in the industry, and having ideas of how they could be done, and bringing those ideas to life. It's really been a great partnership and friendship. So.
Well, I think that's what makes us kindred spirits. I mean, I think we both started our businesses because we just thought there's a better way to do it, which was kind of, cocky and arrogant, perhaps, of a couple of young guys at the time. But I mean, I think we did build something that's different. But let's go back. I mean, I've always been impressed with your work at Goldman Sachs. So when we get into how you got to Goldman, what you built there, and how you, because that's really where you kind of cut your teeth and saw that there was a better way to do it. So talk about that, please.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So I started my career at ACO, coming out of law school, worked at ACO for a couple of years. ACO ended up getting bought by Goldman Sachs. I think it was 2002 or thereabouts. And Goldman liked the services that ACO was providing, and they wanted those services to be provided to the partners of Goldman Sachs. But rather than working with the traditional ACO offices, Goldman Sachs wanted an office that was, within their building, and folks that could be, available to them and exclusive to them. So the idea was to build the Goldman Sachs Family Office, which was an internal group to Goldman. We were a cost center.
Mm-hmm.
And our sole clients were partners of Goldman Sachs, and we weren't revenue producing. We weren't trying to sell anything. Our sole job was to make sure that the Goldman partners' personal lives were taken care of, and so that they could focus on doing good stuff for Goldman Sachs. And so that really put us in a position to help them with anything and everything that came up, from complicated tax planning to just day-to-day administrative things. And as you mentioned, I got my LLM in tax before I started working at the Goldman Sachs Family Office. So, once I got that, I was really looking to kind of move on to something bigger. And the Goldman Sachs Family Office was just that. I was able to work with some of the executive committee, the CEO at the time, and so really got some great experience working with those folks, and working with the best and brightest and smartest CPAs, attorneys, other advisors at Goldman Sachs, and it was really a great training ground to learn all of that, and just the pedigree that comes along with that. There's a lot of just diligence and hard work that Goldman, kind of breeds in people.
Well, and you saw some real complicated issues. I mean, I think one of the things that I always admire about you is sort of your attention to detail and how you dig right in. So, I mean, I would imagine these Goldman Sachs partners didn't suffer fools very well. So they relied on you to get it right, and probably came to you with some pretty complex questions and problems, which is great training, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Everything needed to be, 100% accurate. It needed to be done right away. And so it was quite demanding, which at times was pretty stressful. But,
Mm-hmm.
that was exactly what kind of, groomed me to being the type of person that I am. It was, being called out and being questioned on little things, this and that.
Yeah, yeah,
It really kind of got me to, having that attention to detail before I go into those meetings,
yeah.
so that I could be prepared for those.
Well, that's why we're so afraid of you. I always tell my team, Justyn does not suffer a fool's well. In fact, I was once in your office where you did not suffer a fool very well. I remember sitting in your office, and I wasn't the fool that time. But the
Yeah,
point is, that's great training, and I think the attention to detail is. I mean, I don't have it as well as I should at times. But we joke when Justyn Volesko calls, everybody's like, "Okay, what's going on? Do we make a mistake? What's going on?" No, but that's a tremendous training, though. I mean, it's almost like a
yeah,
boot camp, almost.
yeah.
Learning how to think and learning how to get it right, because the consequences of getting it wrong aren't pleasant.
Right. Exactly. We're dealing with big numbers, and potential Wall Street Journal articles, and
Yeah.
you want to make sure everything is as buttoned up as possible, and always have people scrutinizing things, looking at things. And so it kind of taught me that with everything that I do, I want to make sure that it is 100% right. It's above board. I can stand in front of anybody and defend it and explain it, and feel good about the work that we're doing.
Well, no, and that approach shines. Sure. I mean, we're going to get to some of the big idea planning techniques that you've gotten involved with that some would say, pushes the envelope. But I will talk about what we mean by that later, because you and I both embrace some planning that has
Yeah.
been looked at and reviewed by the IRS, but some wouldn't get anywhere close to. But I love what you said, though. You always, and still do, stand by the planning that you're recommending and the work that we do with Lipkin and others, because
Yeah.
we know it's been tested. All right, so talk to me. So you had great training at Goldman and taught you how to think and how to be.
Yeah.
So then what was it about your career trajectory that made you think, hey, I want to do my own business? Because that's a
Yeah.
big jump.
Yeah, it was a big jump, and I think it was this idea of working in a cost center, working in a place where we weren't trying to sell anything,
Mhm.
and our sole job was making sure the partners were happy, and living in that life for close to 10 years. Starting to see the impact that we had on the partners, and how some of these folks who are the smartest folks in the world,
Yeah.
with very high expectations, and then being able to exceed those expectations and seeing the impact that we had on their lives.
Yeah.
My partner Andrew Cooper and myself, we had this vision that if we can be a trusted advisor to clients, looking at the holistic balance sheet, being there to help with anything and everything, not looking to sell anything, but really being their trusted advisor,
Yeah.
that we could provide a differentiated service. And it was really doing that in the Goldman Sachs family office for as many years as we did, that really taught us that this is a different way of providing this type of service in wealth management.
Right.
And so things shifted a little bit during the financial crisis. Goldman Partners were leaving, and so it created a bit of an opportunity for us to leave Goldman and do this on our own, and start to kind of continue to build this vision of providing this differentiated service that looked at the client first, and looked at the holistic balance sheet, and really just trying to get the clients to love you.
Yeah.
Not trying to sell anything. And of
Right.
course, we were in it for business, but the idea was, if you're doing all the right things by the client, all the rest is going to fall into place.
Well, and avoiding conflicts of interest. I mean, I think that's, everybody defines family office in a different way. And I want to hear your definition,
Yeah.
because I think we've talked about this over the years. The way you approach it is the right way, and I get worried when, people who are selling insurance call themselves a family office, or,
Yeah.
and I'm not being pejorative or I'm not, or negative. I think words are important. Right. And
Yeah.
it's just like we go back when everybody called themselves a wealth manager. Nobody knew what that was, what that meant either. So describe what you built in terms of how you define a family office approach, the kinds of services and the kinds of work that you do.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that we struggle with and continue to think about. Can we come up with a new term? Because you hear the word family office, and it could mean so many different things.
Yeah.
And I think we differentiate between family office services and being a family office. There are lots of folks out there that are providing a family office service. There aren't that many out there that are actually a family office.
Yep.
And really the differentiating factor that I see is, you have to be multifaceted in terms of, helping with taxes, income taxes, estate planning, asset management, insurance. There are all of these different facets of wealth management. And you have all these different professionals that are providing that, CPAs, attorneys, insurance agents, asset managers, and each of them are in their own lane doing their own work. But there's so much cross impact across each of these areas,
Right.
that, to truly be able to provide an optimized service and optimal plans for folks, you have to be able to understand and be an expert in each of these areas and understand how they integrate. And so, the family office that we built at Goldman Sachs and that we built at AJ Wealth, that was the idea of it. There was very little outsourcing of work. We don't draft legal documents. We rely on attorneys for that.
Right.
We didn't prepare tax returns. We rely on CPAs for that. But all of the planning, all of the thought process was done in house. And being a tax attorney by training, everything we do is very tax minded in nature. And so, the term family office in my mind is being an expert at all of these areas and understanding how to integrate all of these areas together in order to come up with an optimal plan. Whereas when you're dealing with somebody who's only providing a family office service in their one lane, they're not able to see the full picture.
No, that's a great point. That's really well said. I never thought of it that way, that there's a distinction between a family office and family office services. Well, and I think that's what you're so good at. I mean, one of the things that has always surprised me on the mutual clients that we've been lucky to work with you on is how much they rely on you and your team, but you in particular. I mean, a lot of these folks don't make a move without calling you, and that's what you want, right? You want to be that first call. That's probably the biggest compliment we can get in our industry professionally, is to have that client that doesn't do anything without talking to. And I think that kind of loyalty, you earn that. You can't buy that. You can't BS that. You have to earn that. Yeah. And I love seeing that. And that's one of the things that I'm always amazed about that. And I think that's that's to me a loose definition of what a family office is supposed to do, right? Is be
Yeah.
that first call and coordinate all these professionals, but it's not easy to do. It's not easy to do.
No, and it's really, it's not just on the financial side of things. It's just their personal lives.
Mhm.
I have clients that are calling me. Their child is graduating college. They're looking for a job. Could I help them find a job in whatever area? It's we get all sorts of questions from our clients, and I do truly enjoy getting these kind of questions from left field, or questions that aren't your traditional wealth management questions, because I think it goes to the point that you were just saying, that it shows the type of relationship that we build with clients, and it's not just being there to execute on things, but it's
Right.
being there to handle things, and not just to handle things, just to take things off their plate, but also to make sure that it's done properly, and everything is maintained.
Well, and they know you care, and that's the key too. I mean, I know you're a very serious person, and you take their problems very seriously. So I remember the first time we met, and I remember chuckling to myself because our businesses were so brand new, but yet somehow, while I was working out of the back seat of my car, I go to visit you on your in your palatial office on Wall Street, right, literally right next to the trading area, and I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong? This guy, both our businesses are about the same amount years old, and I can barely put gas in my car. So, all joking aside,
Yeah.
you hit the ground running very quickly and picked up talented staff, and some world-class clients quickly. And I think it's a testament to obviously the work you did at 10 years with Goldman Sachs. But talk to me about that, because I'll never forget coming into your office, my partner, Terry Harrison. I'm thinking, what is he doing and I'm not doing? I can't afford the hotel room in New York City here. And this guy's in the middle of the financial epicenter of the planet. So seriously, talk to me about that transition.
Yeah, and it's always important to us to show and have that kind of panache of everything that we do. I mean, the clientele that we work
Well,
with,
sure, yeah,
as I mentioned, you have high expectations, and so the presentation of things, the delivery of things, every little thing that we do, I obsess over.
hmm,
And the people that we hire, the services that we use, the look of our offices, the presentation, there's so much that goes with the presentation of things. I always talk
sure,
about, the work that we do is kind of twofold. There's the technical aspect of things, but then there's the conveying the technical aspect of things to clients,
right,
and that part of things, it's more art. You have to be able to take a very technical issue, but convert it and translate it into something that a client who is very smart, can understand. And so the formatting of things, the color coordination of things, I don't know, it's like feng shui in my mind, that you want to be able to look at this and
I'm only laughing because I remember your office, the first one, and then the one that you're in now. And I remember it was pretty new when I came to see you. And yeah, I was looking at every little, and you were explaining to me in specific detail, and I'm thinking, wow, I mean, that's impressive. I don't even have shades on my office window, So no, I'm joking. No, but that's a testament to the way your brain works, and that's why your
yeah.
clients love you for sure. No, it's excellent. How many years was AJ Wealth independent? Because I really want you to talk about Cerity in a minute, but remind me,
Yeah.
so how many years were you completely independent?
Yeah, so it was around 2012 we left Goldman Sachs and
Okay.
started AJ Wealth,
Okay.
and then in 2023 we merged with Cerity Partners. So around 11 years.
That's amazing. Yeah, and we were chartered in 2012 too, so it was amazing how we started the same year. Um, so one of the things I really want to hear about, and I want our audience to hear about, is Cerity and your decision to do that, and here's why.
Yeah,
I mean, we
yeah,
joked earlier about how you don't suffer fools, and I actually mean that as a huge compliment.
yeah,
And I know that you're very picky in terms of the people you choose to work with,
yeah,
and the partners that you choose. And so Cerity must have been pretty special, because I know you probably looked under the hood and put them through all kinds of due diligence before you came to the conclusion to jump on that team. Talk about that.
yeah. No, that's a good question, and it's something that for many years we never expected to merge.
Hmm.
The thought was to be AJ Wealth, and to grow AJ Wealth with the vision that we had. And so for many years, we were approached by others, but there was more to build, there was more to
Hmm.
grow,
Hmm.
and more to do as AJ Wealth before we could even think about moving on to another organization. And so, over a certain period of time and growth, it turned to and I never wanted to build anything on a house of cards. I always wanted to have a solid foundation, have my arms around
Absolutely.
everything.
Yeah.
But we were growing to the point where the compliance, the HR, all sorts of issues and I started feeling like I didn't have my arms around everything.
Hmm. Hmm.
And running the business was essentially taking all of our time
Yeah.
and time away from working with clients and the planning work that we're doing. And it was at that time, it was at that moment in time where it was, it became, obvious that, now is the time to partner with somebody.
Yeah.
And then in choosing the right partner, we didn't want to just be another cog in a wheel and just
Absolutely.
another, firm that was just merging into, a larger aggregated firm. And the great thing about Cerity Partners, Kurt Machinsky, the CEO of Cerity, he knew of us many years ago. He was courting us for a number of years, and he really recognized the differentiated service that we provided, and he appreciated that. Uh,
Well,
and
he's
it
a
was
force of nature himself. I've talked to him a few times. He's an impressive guy. Yeah.
he
Absolutely.
is an impressive guy, and so for someone like that to really recognize and appreciate the differentiated service that we were providing, it got us comfortable that we would be able to join this organization and continue to do what we do and provide the differentiated
So let's
service.
talk about that, because I mean, I missed that nuance until after you joined there for a while. So you came in not just to become a cog in a wheel, but really to build out a whole suite of services for them. So your official title is co-head of Cerity Partners Family Office. So that's
Yeah.
you, that's your team, that's what they wanted. So again, you're not just some office they acquired. I mean, they brought you to do something, a big idea, so to speak, for
Yeah.
them. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Cerity Partners, has provided family office services, over the years. There
Mhm.
are lots of other great advisors here at the firm that provide family office services, but there wasn't a dedicated group or, a specific offering, providing family office services. So that was the intention. We built AJ Wealth as a multifamily office, and built it in a way that we could scale the service, which truly has been a monumental effort and a
Mhm.
major challenge,
Mhm.
and also a challenge that I see other folks out there that are providing family office services. It's hard to do. It's hard to be able to scale such a specialized
Yeah.
service
Yeah.
in a way that can continue to scale. And so over the years, we were forced to come up with a way to do this because the clients kept coming in.
Yep.
And so we needed to figure out how we can continue to provide the type of service that we provide. And really the way that it kind of dawned on us is Andrew and myself are innately able to provide the service that we're able to provide.
Mhm.
But as we started thinking about it, everything that we do, there's a certain way that you could do it, and I liken it to recipes in a cookbook. There's a recipe with creating a will, with getting a mortgage, with sending a wire, with getting creating a trust. Every single thing that we do, there's a right way to do it, and there's a way
Yeah.
that we innately we're doing it. And so for a number of years, I took top down analysis of everything that we do, for our clients, whether it be asset management, insurance, income taxes, estate planning, and then within each of those categories, everything that we do within each of those categories. And then from start to finish, when we start working with the client, to the analysis for each of these things, and then started actually kind of building out this cookbook of we had a checklist of checklists, and
Mhm.
and so every single thing that we did, we had a special checklist for how to do it. And then it was building out the right team to be able to provide this. And so we had to make sure that every single thing that we do for our clients was done right
Yeah.
and done amazingly well, regardless of the fact that we might have to hire somebody new and maybe they don't know how to do it. And so really, a testament to the scalability. I'd say, our secret sauce is composed of, three components, our team structure, our processes, and our technology.
Yep.
And all of that is built on all of these checklists that we've built out. We have a customized Salesforce platform that, I kind of rolled my sleeves up and built it myself, because as I was building out these checklists, it was really a matter of having technology, and Salesforce was great to allow that customization, and to be able to provide the technology where all of the data was there, all of the processes were there, and then having different team members able to provide that service. And so,
Sure.
coming up, and so we built that infrastructure, and then the idea was, now that we've joined Cerity Partners, essentially continuing to leverage that infrastructure, the team that we put together, because after those 11 years of AJ Wealth, we were a pretty well-oiled machine.
Absolutely.
And so, and that was part of the plan, was to join Cerity as this well-oiled machine, leverage the resources and support of the larger Cerity organization, to allow us to kind of get back to building out this vision of this specialized family office service, and continuing to scale it in a way that I continue to say this mantra. There really is no industry leader in the family office space. My goal is to make Cerity Partners the industry leader in the
Well, I think
family
you're on
office.
your way. You're on your way for sure. I mean, the reputation of Cerity and your reputation inside of Cerity. So, as you know, we were doing work with Cerity before you joined, and we're starting to develop our relationship with them. And there's two things that are amazing to me. One, their growth trajectory has just been astounding, and they
Yeah.
hit the market and turned into a player very quickly, which is unheard of in many respects this quickly. And then they bring on your capability, which across the footprint, you're wildly well regarded. And I think that your goal of making this the premier sort of family office offering, I guess we'll call it,
Yeah.
not just services, but offering, I guess it's different, is happening. I mean, I think you're doing all the right things, and I think you've surrounded yourself with the right people. I mean, we both think Bill Lipkin's a genius, and all the other lawyers that you work with and the CPAs, which was a great transition now, because I want to get into what it is. I mean, you built the infrastructure, you built the well-oiled machine. So let's talk about the planning that you fell in love with. I mean, I know you love asset protection. I know you love state income tax planning. I know the privacy piece of it's important, the directed trust. I mean, all of that preserves the independence with an independent trust company. So you've remained consistent all the way across your trajectory as a professional. So now you're with Cerity, you're executing the same thing, and you're able to do the same kind of planning. And so one of the things that you and I know met, I mean, it was a coalescing of ideas. I mean, Bill Lipkin taught me what a incomplete non-grantor trust was right around the same time you and I met, and we all fell in love with it. And so why don't we start there? I mean, what are when you're sitting down with a family, what are the passion points for you that you're looking at to plan for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I'd say taxes. I mean, it all goes back to taxes. And I graduated law school. I started working at ACO, and then I started realizing that taxes permeate every aspect of our lives, and down to buying a house. There's a mortgage interest deduction that could impact whether or not you buy that house. And so whether it be income taxes, estate taxes, gift taxes, payroll taxes, there are so many different taxes that impact all different parts of our life. And for the most part, people are just going about their life just dealing with taxes as if it's just something that they have to deal with, react to.
Right.
But I started realizing that if I could become an expert at taxes and really understanding all of these taxes and how they interplay with each other, it's not something that you just have to react to and deal with. It's something that you could proactively plan around.
Yeah, I love that.
And
If I,
so,
I was going to say, if I can just jump in, I think actually what you're doing is a form on the tax front is a form of asset protection, right? Is another way of talking about asset protection. Yeah, please keep going.
Yeah, and so it was that kind of love and passion for taxes that led to me going back to getting my LLM in tax law, and then really just having a passion for understanding all of these different strategies. And whether it be estate planning, we have clients that we started out at AJ Wealth. We had a subset of clients out of
Mhm.
California,
Mhm.
and we'd always hear complaints about having to pay large amounts of California
Right.
taxes,
That's why we're
and
here in California, actually, for that reason, to help people avoid that. Yeah. Yeah.
and so it just got me thinking. Are there different planning opportunities that we could come upon? And so it's always just that continuous idea of coming up with something creative and coming up with understanding the tax code in such a way you're not doing anything illegal.
Well, let's talk about that. Let me jump in on that point. I'm glad you said that, because lately I think our industry has been under fire, right? And I talk about this when I present, and I love getting into this in our conversations, because what you were talking about is not nefarious. It's not tax evasion. It's following the rules. And I've
Right.
been saying lately, and actually I was thinking this morning, knowing we were going to do this, that I came up with this, maybe I heard it somewhere, but this quote, I guess, is those who know the rules of the game of chess the best usually win. And it reminds me of you, because this is exactly what you're saying. If you know the tax code inside and out, you're going to understand it. I'm not talking about loopholes. I'm not
Right.
talking about anything nefarious or illegal, because everything you do, I know, is tested, and you get a lot of private letter rulings from the
Yeah.
IRS. And I love that. But the way you described it is perfectly reasonable. But we're still criticized. Like you and I are criticized because
Sure.
we're helping rich people hide money, or we're helping rich people evade taxes, and that's not what we're doing. So
Right.
please continue.
Yeah, I know it's a very fine line, and I think there's a lot of professionals probably in the industry that maybe give it a bad name,
For
but
sure.
it's tax planning and just staying within what you're required to do from a tax perspective. And so when we work with clients, it's a very top down approach that I take when I first start working with a client.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I want to save on state income taxes, so we're just going out and working with clients on saving on state income taxes. It's looking at the particular client, looking at their financial and tax profile, understanding what taxes are plaguing them,
Mm-hmm.
and looking at their tax return, looking at their balance sheet, and going top down. What are the taxes that are plaguing you? Whether it be self-employment taxes, state income taxes, capital gains, ordinary income.
Mm-hmm.
Once I have a good understanding of the taxes that are impacting you most, then we could take a look at the planning that we could do to mitigate each of those different areas of taxes. So it's a very tailored approach, and it's very top down, based on the client first,
Mm-hmm.
and then based on the knowledge and the different planning strategies that we have in our toolbox.
Well, and some of them are just easy. I mean, I don't mean that in a pithy way, but I mean,
Yeah,
you're looking at it from an analytical perspective. What I'm saying sometimes is that the solutions aren't rocket science. I mean, the California resident that moves his trust into South Dakota or Nevada, that doesn't have a state income tax, suddenly avoids, taxation on undistributed income, which is
yeah,
supported by the Kastner case. Now, remember how excited you and I were when that happened
yeah,
at the Supreme Court,
yeah.
which is indicate that maybe we need to get a life because we were that excited about that case. But anyway, that's just between you and I. And all everybody listening. But all joking aside, that confirmed and affirmed what you and I believe to be true, and others that we work with.
Right,
But also, New Jersey, on the East Coast. I mean, it's that simple to mitigate state income taxation and
right.
capital gains taxation when they sell a business, regardless of what California and New York and other states are trying to get rid of the incomplete non-grantor trust. There's still a play to save a
Yeah,
lot of money in capital gains, and it's not rocket science to do it, right, Justyn? It's just a matter of
right,
nobody's told them this before.
right.
That's what blows my mind.
It's a great point, because one of the most prevalent tax planning strategies, giving away donating appreciated securities,
Mm-hmm.
which you're never really going to see all that often, because you're working with an asset manager who's not familiar with taxes,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're not going to tell you to donate your appreciated securities.
Right.
Your CPA might tell you to make some charitable donations. They don't see your portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very simple, and just to go even a step further, create a donor advised fund, move your appreciated securities to a donor advised fund so that you can very easily make your charitable donations out of there. It's a very simple strategy, but it's one that will come across new prospective clients that have never heard of this.
Yeah, and it blows my mind. I mean, in California, we're humbled to have a lot of growth for the same reasons you have in California, where people are looking for solutions. And we have to be careful, both of us. Although we're lawyers, we really can't be practicing law. We got to watch that
Yeah,
fine line of giving legal advice.
yeah,
But I am surprised on the West Coast, particularly up and down California, how many times somebody will say to me, well, that doesn't work. That's not going
Yeah,
to work. And I'm like, well, the Supreme Court says it does.
yeah,
It's not me. It's not. We didn't make this up. I mean, there's case
right.
law now that says this works, right? And that's what kind of blows my mind sometimes.
And you said it earlier, coming from a place of yes, it's I don't know what the word is. To all of the different professionals in this industry that come from a place of no, like
Right.
what? Why? Why are you coming from a place of no?
I know.
Let's at least talk about it, and
Yeah.
let's just work through it to
Because
see
our
it. And
parents always told us no. I guess that's what happened, right? You and I just went in a different direction.
and that's why I love about Bridgeford and Bill Lipkin particularly. Also, it's let's figure out if there's a way to do this.
Yeah.
And coming from a place of yes, it's much more enjoyable to work with professionals that come from a place of yes. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Well, as
But
long as
at
we don't
least
lose our law licenses or I don't lose my trust charter, everything's fine, right? Okay.
exactly. Well, you might not decide to go forward with something
Right,
because
right,
maybe it doesn't work, but at
right.
least just start from the point of view of maybe it does work, or
Yeah.
let's figure it
Let's just see
out.
what happens. No, I love it. Yeah, that's why we're so. I mean, I think the people we've surrounded ourselves over the years, and we all that's what drives us to one another.
Yeah,
Is the game of it all too, and plus you get a great result for a client, and you do that once, and they love you forever. Which is
yeah,
another very gratifying. Well, I mean, this is amazing. I love this conversation. Let me lead towards the end here to get your thoughts and feedback on sort of the geopolitical landscape that we're in. And this is, I'm not getting into politics, but obviously
yeah,
we can't ignore what's going on around us. And as a couple of lawyers who understand what the Constitution means and says, we're seeing some pretty crazy things coming out of Washington. And I always say it doesn't matter if you like Trump or not. We all have to concede that there's a degree of chaos that I've never seen in my lifetime.
yeah,
And I'm older than you, but I try to explain to my daughter who's in law school, well, this isn't normal, and don't
yeah,
accept this as normal. And so, are there going to be tariffs? Are there not going to be tariffs? The implication perhaps there's not going to be an IRS and all the hyperbole that we've had to deal with in the last, multiple months. And so, again, not a political statement, but as planners, we need to plan and we need to
yeah,
think. And we get questions all the time. And, well, what should we do? Should I move my assets offshore? And then there's some very smart people who are very concerned about the lack of certainty and some say even instability in the United States that we have never had before. At least I don't ever remember it being this bad. And I'm not being dramatic and I'm not
yeah,
underscoring a political position. I'm saying, how do we address it? So I always joke lately, well, how do you address the proverbial elephant in the room or the elephant in the White House? I mean, because things are happening that we've never seen before, which is pushing people like you and me and Lipkin and others that we consider to be geniuses to be creative, really creative right now. So what are you hearing? How are you addressing some of this with your clients? And I know it's a big question, but I really
yeah.
want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say it has to start with really understanding a client's balance sheet.
Mhm.
The assets on their balance sheet, how the assets are titled. The location of assets. And so when we first start working with a client, we go through a pretty deep discovery of everything going on in their lives. We ask them for all of their tax returns, insurance policies, brokerage statements, testamentary documents. We have a whole laundry list of information that we're gathering, and we put together a custom set of exhibits that organizes everything in a way so that we could clearly see their entire financial and tax profile. Because if there's a tax law change, if there's some change of law, you can't just react to that change of law if you don't know how it's
Well, that's a
impacting
great point.
you specifically.
So
And
remove
so it's
some of the uncertainty is what you're saying. So you know your clients so well, you can anticipate, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right, and from there you could start to identify risk. You could start to say,
Yeah.
these assets are more exposed than other assets, whereas the way that your home is titled is protecting your home. Maybe
Mhm.
your insurance is policies are protecting the cash value there, but then identifying where the risks are, where the exposure is, and then doing the planning to protect against that. And then the most important part of that is making sure that the planning that you're doing is flexible.
Mhm. Mhm.
We never know what, and I get this question a lot from clients
Yeah.
whenever we're doing planning. Well, what if the tax law changes? How does that impact this plan? It might impact the plan. Depends on what the tax law change is going to be. And we saw that a bunch with these incomplete non-grantor trusts.
Right.
We had a couple of them in California, and California changed the law. But the point is to make the planning adaptable and flexible, so that you can bob and weave with whatever the tax law changes or any law changes are going to be, because there's always going to be change of law, and
Right.
so we never want to stick ourselves in a corner where we're stuck, and that's one of the great things about South Dakota, is the very flexible decanting laws. We love our South Dakota trust. I mean, the asset protection, the flexibility of decanting in South Dakota, it really provides a fantastic backdrop to create a trust, have a trust there, but then be able to adjust if there's going to be a
Yeah,
tax law
and be
change.
nimble. That's a really great answer. I mean, I guess I think I should start to say that more when we get those questions. I mean, you're right. A South Dakota trust, the planning you're doing, we can change it on a dime if we need to.
Yeah,
It's not like we're not connecting with our clients. I mean, when the change happened in the incomplete non-grantor trust world, we got real creative and approached all of our clients that had them. I
yeah,
said, well, here's a way. Here's a solution, because there are a couple of solutions. So the
there
world
are.
didn't end. But I think that's the answer. I mean, I think that I almost want to write something about that. I mean, if you're planning and your planners are close to you and know you inside and out and have created a plan that if you need to change it overnight, you can. If you need to get your trust out of South Dakota, your trust protector can do that overnight. I mean, these are the
Yeah.
types of things we're talking about. That's a very good point. It's a very good point.
Absolutely. So it's really just being in tune with everything, and that's why, from our point of view, you have to understand the client's full balance sheet, the holistic view of things, because you have to understand how any law change is going to impact your client, where it's going to impact, what's the impact going to be able to analyze,
Yeah.
whether or not you need to make any changes
What's the
and what
move?
changes you need to make.
Well, Justyn, it's been great. And as I said, a long time in coming having this conversation. I'm proud of, as I said, our friendship. I'm proud of the work we've done together for families, and
Yeah.
we've been involved with some really cutting edge thinking with some amazing attorneys. And I look forward to many more years of that. And your success and what you're building there at Cerity is awesome. I think it's you're right. I don't think there is a defined leader in this space, and I think you're going to be it. For our audience, Justyn's information will be available, and if you have any questions, or you have a family, or you yourself are a family that can benefit from what Justyn has been talking about, please reach out to him. We couldn't speak highly enough of his expertise, attention to detail, and the fact that he doesn't suffer fools very well. And also, there's a couple of webinars I noticed that he has available, I think, through his website. One is called Raising Financially Confident Children. Did I get that right? That you've done?
Yes.
And another one, which I want you to talk about a little bit, Financial Preparedness for Emergencies, a guide for high net worth families. And I saw that and I'm like, oh my, what, emergencies? Like what? I'm joking.
Yeah.
Like I kind of startled me, like, I haven't thought about that.
Well, and webinars are something that I'm going to start doing more of. And the biggest reason, as we've grown, as our client base has grown, and as our expertise and experience has grown, we start to realize that clients are interested in what our other clients are doing, not from like a betraying of confidence point of view,
Right.
how are other people approaching this issue, this topic? The next gen education is a big one. We get that question a lot, especially, our client base has been relatively young. And so their kids have been young. And so we've been, over the years, we've watched their kids grow up. And then our clients have questions about, teaching their kids about financial education. And so, the thought was, we're doing some good work for particular clients, but these are issues that impact everybody.
Yeah.
And so, let's hold a webinar on that. The financial preparedness was another one. When Trump was first elected, there was a lot of concern, caution about what might happen. And so, just being able to, it's seeing what questions we're getting from our clients, often, frequently, and then realizing, we want to be able to help, a larger population of clients, or not just even clients, just other folks that are, interested,
Yep.
with this valuable information. And so, continue to look to do some of these webinars. Another area that we've, planning to do a webinar on are liquidity event planning. Liquidity events are, major events in folks' lives that have, major tax consequences, which also, comes with it planning that can be done that can have some pretty significant impact in a positive way.
A huge impact. Well, we
Yeah.
look forward to the additional webinars. I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
them. I think that obviously you have the acumen and are already a thought leader. I think the more you can talk and the more you can publish and get those out is just better, because you and others occupy a space. My one partner would call it rare air. I think you're talking about things and operating in rare air space, which I love. And again, I've loved our partnership. So again, Justyn Volesko, co-head of family office, the family office, at Cerity, and so I'm saying it carefully. I don't want to say family office service, because that's not what we're talking about. I'm trying to use my words, and I know you're big on attention to detail, so I want to get it right. But no, seriously, Justyn, thank you for everything, and we'll continue to do great work together.
Yeah, David, thank you for everything. I appreciate the invitation. Appreciate the partnership with Bridgeford. The organization that you guys have built has been phenomenal. And as you guys have grown, and as we work with other folks at your firm, just continue to be impressed with the work that you're doing. And like, as you said, we have high expectations, and a bit strict in who we work with, but you guys have been impressive all the way, and we couldn't be doing a lot of the things that we're doing without our partnership. So,
and vice versa. Very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thanks again for listening to Bridgeford Trust Company's Delivering Direction and Control podcast series. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast to keep posted on when new episodes are added. And for more information, you can visit us online at bridgefordtrust.com.